But Martin Balsam, he cast out of New York. Wonderful actor.
Have you got some aspirin? I've got something. Not aspirin. My mother's doctor gave them to me the day of my wedding. Teddy was furious when he found out I'd taken tranquilizers.
I'd always wanted to be an actress. I think the first time I really knew I wanted to be was when I was 7 years old, and I was in England in boarding school. And I played 2 parts there, and then I came over here with my parents when my father came over to make Rebecca. There were a lot of parts I thought I could have played in his pictures, but he would only cast me if I was exactly right for the part. At the time of Psycho, I was married. I'd been married in 1952, so I wasn't living at home, you know, so I wasn't in on all the early pre-production. But he said to me, there's a part in the new picture that I would love you to do. So I did, you know, but he had picked me for that part.
He was flirting with you. I guess he must have noticed my wedding ring.
Hitch's feeling about the movie was that it had to be kept secret, that the fun of it, the magic of it would exist in your not knowing the truth about the story. Up until the last moment, you had to believe that the mother was alive. Therefore, didn't want me to discuss the script with anybody, didn't want anybody talking about it. I don't think many people knew what we were doing, really. My friends knew I was working on a movie with Hitchcock, but they didn't know what it was. Had no visitors on the set. It was a very closed shop, and that was the way he wanted it. And he decided that if he spread some rumors about casting the mother in the movie, this would simply solidify it, certainly amongst the Hollywood people. And they were the ones he was most worried about. Because if they knew what the story was about, then the public would find out. So he did get word around that he was looking for someone to play Anthony Perkins' mother, and the agents piled on with their suggestions, you know. So it was a hoax that worked to the benefit of the picture, I think, and to the benefit of the audience who would ultimately be seeing it.
Psycho was shot mainly on the back lot of Universal. Originally, he wanted the opening shot to be a helicopter shot. Hitchcock was always ahead of his time in the type of shots he wanted to get. And at that time, he wanted a helicopter to come in with the city of Phoenix in the far background and just titles over this slow-moving move-in shot, move-in shot, move-in shot to a hotel. I think it was on Adams Street in Phoenix. And go through the window and discover John Gavin and Janet Leigh in a hotel room to open his movie. And we tried and we tried and we tried, and it was just for title shots. It was just too jerky and bumpy and moving, and it was before the mounts, the camera mounts that you have today and all of that. We didn't have that, and we couldn't do it. So Hitchcock came up with the idea of a white pan going in like that, in through the window.
The opening scene obviously was a key scene to set the stage for Mr. Hitchcock's manipulation. Because if you're seeing Psycho for the first time and you see the opening scene, this is going to be a story of this romance, and then when Marion leaves and meets Tony Perkins, then obviously it's going to be, you know, 2 guys and this girl, and which one, or woman, and which one is she going to go with. That's the obvious plot. So it was very important that this scene had the proper passion.
Why don't you call your boss and tell him you're taking the rest of the afternoon off? Friday anyway, and hot.
So John Gavin is a gentleman. John Gavin is a true gentleman, a wonderful man, and a very decent and sort of honorable, you know. So to do the opening scene, and I hadn't known John Gavin well. I'd met him, but, you know, but to start off with this kind of a scene, the first day of shooting was I think, awkward. And so we did the scene, and Mr. Hitchcock was not pleased. And so he kind of took me aside, and he said, Janet, do you think I'm not quite getting the, the passion that I think should come across for this scene. Do you think you could, do something? And I said, well, I'll do my best. And so I did.
Hitchcock's only reference to his cameo in Psycho came early on in our work on the movie, where he said, actually what he said to me was, you may know, Joseph, that I always appear in one scene in my movies. And I said, yes, I think I noticed that. And he said, I'm going to have to do it early in this one. And he was absolutely right, because once you got to that murder scene, any interruption by seeing Hitchcock on screen would have been disastrous.
It got to be a very, very hard thing. It started through a thing of necessity in silent movies when you needed people in it, and so everybody on the set would go in it. And then because he was so, different looking and rather rotund, people started recognizing him. And then it started becoming very, very difficult, because especially after the TV show, when he got to be so well known.
Good evening.
And then people would see it and say, oh, there he is, or they would wait and look. So he had to do it usually at the very beginning of a movie, before he was creating any mood or, anything like that. And it did get to be rather hard for him to do it.
So he decided to do it outside the place where Marion works, which was fine, because it was at a break early enough in the movie.
Is Mr. Lowry back from lunch? He's lunching with the man who's buying the Harris Street property. You know the oil lease man? That's why he's late.
That scene didn't really mean anything to... We hadn't, established any direct plot or anything like that.
I never carry more than I can afford to lose. Count 'em.
I declare.
I don't. That's how I get to keep it.
I think he wanted to bring a bit of lightness into the beginning so that it would then contrast with the blackness that you were going into right after that.
I figured that Marion's around 30, something like that, and she sees her life, flitting away. So when this opportunity presents itself with the money, it was important that the audience know this woman, know that she's a good person, but know her frailties, know her weaknesses, and, in a moment of weakness, she took the money and then started to pay for it.
My father was petrified of policemen because apparently his father, when he was a child, knew the local police person. And my father had done something wrong. I doubt anything very much. And so they said, well, we're going to take you over and you're going to have to go to the police station. Now, the story is that they put him in a jail cell. I highly doubt that. I would say he was probably put in a room, and left by himself for a while, and that's it. Because he was always petrified of policemen. So that was that part, that scene where Janet is driving with the policeman, that was the menace, not to him. You couldn't have anything more menacing than that.
Most of my stuff was done in the studio. The only actual location was at the used car lot, which was shot very near the studio. But it's funny, I love working in a studio because it's controlled. You're able to, the camera, you can control the camera, you can control the lights, you can control the sound. I mean, that's where you make pictures, is in a studio. When you're working on location, everything has to be adapted, and it's more difficult for all concerned, especially technically.
Now, he hated location. He loathed location. He didn't want to go in any location unless he had to. Because he said it costs you a lot of money, it costs you twice what it's going to cost you on the set. You then have to come back and redub everything because of all the noise that goes on, So he really didn't like it, really didn't like it.
Hey!
She is not a thief. She's a very bad thief. I mean, she is clumsy. She obviously can't disguise what she's feeling. I mean, she's so obvious because she's not practiced. So this is not her nature. But it's a grasp. It's a desperate grasp at life. the only satisfaction almost was that on the ride, she just imagined what they were saying back home.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Girl works for you for 10 years, you trust her.
All of that dialogue that she imagines, Mr. Hitchcock knew exactly the timing. I mean, he knew what lines he was going to use voiceover. So he did them. He said to me the lines that I was imagining hearing. And so as he was saying it, I could imagine just what was being said, which was kind of fun, thinking, oh, well, that creepy guy who had the money anyway deserves not to have it.
Hot creeper. She sat there while I dumped it out. Hardly even looked at it. Planning and even flirting with me.
That's the really only sort of pleasurable moment she had, really, until she meets someone who was more mixed up and more confused than she. And she was able to realize she can't go that route either.
The design of the motel and the famous Psycho house, it was supposed to be located somewhere in Central California. There was never a town specifically named. We always felt that it was up around Tulare, somewhere up in that area. The basic thing that we had to have with the house and the house had to stand above the motel. There had to be the steps down to the motel. There had to be an angle from the motel that you could see from the window up to the house. These were all designed prior and then laid out after the script, of course. I remember one night we were on the back lot and it was early in the production, and I had, as an assistant director, really done my homework because this was my first feature with Mr. Hitchcock. I didn't want it to be my last. And I thought I was really prepared. And it was the shot where Janet Leigh drives up to the motel at night, and it's pouring rain, and Norman comes down the stairs, and everything was ready to go. The rain, I'd rehearsed the rain and everything. We're all set to roll the cameras, and we turn on the rain, and Mr. Hitchcock said, cut. And he said, Hilton, you didn't prepare this very well. And I was shocked. What's wrong? And he pointed up there, and sure enough, what was coming up over behind on the back lot at Universal, but a full moon. Here we are in a big rainstorm and the moon in the background. I had done everything but had looked at the charts and found out when the full moon was. So what we did hurriedly, and to this day I'll never forget the wonderful grip crew we had. We had 2 grips with a sentry stand and a long pole and some blacks, and they followed that moon all night and blocked it out from the camera.
Dirty night.
You have a vacancy?
Oh, we have 12 vacancies. 12 cabins, 12 vacancies.
Tony Perkins, well, he's just a master. It was a joy to come to work, and there was always an excitement for me because it was like you knew what you wanted to bring to the scene. But the excitement was you didn't know what he was going to bring. And obviously what he brought then sparked more from you in response. And so it was just a wonderful experience to the anticipation of what was going to happen. What more were we going to get today than we thought was there? He had a wonderful sense of humor, very dry, you know. He was a good friend, he was a wonderful husband, dear and loving father.
Visita mi canal.
I mean, he was not Norman Bates, but he was just so brilliant that the people said, yes, you are. You are too, Norman Bates.
We had a lot of laughs together. We also had a lot of serious conversations. I told him early on about having seen him in Look Homeward Angel and how he impressed me in that, and that I had used the image of him on stage for Norman Bates, and he was pleased with that. He knew exactly what scene I was talking about in Look Homeward Angel. And then I told him that I felt that Norman Bates, if he were a painting, would be painted by Hopper, and he agreed. And so we had kind of that discussion, writer and actor, about the character. He had an incredible grasp on Norman Bates and the situation that he was in. I think Tony Perkins must have known what it was like to be trapped.
I think that we're all in our private traps, clamped in them, and none of us can ever get out. We scratch and claw, but only at the air, only at each other. And for all of it, we never budge an inch.
In some way, somehow, he knew what trapped meant, just as I did. And while we didn't talk about that aspect of it, it was clear to me early on that he was becoming Norman Bates. As a matter of fact, I think he had a hard time shedding Norman Bates after Psycho.
I won't have you bringing strange young girls in for supper. By candlelight, I suppose, in the cheap erotic fashion of young men with cheap erotic minds.
Mother, please.
I felt that the mother theme was not only vital to the movie, it was vital to me because I was in analysis because of that. So I felt that everyone would have some kind of strong connection with the mother, whoever that happened to be. And as a matter of fact, the line about turning mother's picture to the wall had to do with that very thing.
We can even have dinner, but respectably. In my house, with my mother's picture on the mantel, and my sister helping me broil a big steak for 3.
And after the steak, did we send Sister to the movies, turn Mama's picture to the wall?
Sam.
Also with the part that Pat Hitchcock played, and her line.
Any calls?
Teddy called me. My mother called to see if Teddy called.
So this intertwining of people and their attachment to the mother was very important. I had even tried that in a line in my own first draft, not the one I gave to Hitchcock. I had even tried to work that into The Man with the Money, the man with the $40,000. And it sounded like then I was hitting one note too heavily. So I just let it go at that. But the whole point of it was to say, Mother somehow is always there. And it made her alive.
Mother, my mother, what is the phrase? She isn't quite herself today.
So a lot of the lines in the early scenes were designed to keep you from thinking, why aren't we seeing her?
I think the wonderful thing about Mr. Hitchcock's approach to movies, and his movies obviously exemplified that, is the bait that he gives us, and certain themes that he carries through in his movies. There was always a connection between food and death, and food and sex, and it was always put out there.
You never did eat your lunch, did you?
You eat like a bird.
You know, of course.
Food in Mr. Hitchcock's pictures were always very important, and going back to many of his movies, you'll find that there was a correlation with food in some part of the plot.
The corpse was deep in rigor mortis. He had to break the fingers of the right hand to retrieve what they held. It would be so nice to get back to plain bread in this house.
A few years ago, Mother met this man.
He interwove eating scenes or discussing it with what was going on the screen.
And the way he died. I guess it's nothing to talk about while you're eating.
There's also Tony Perkins, and it was his idea, I believe, of the Halloween candy that he was always eating throughout the movie.
I really remember in the prep of Psycho, I think it was one of the most important questions for Mr. Hitchcock. Will we do white lingerie or black lingerie? And I think he is a humorous moralist. So he started out with the white bra, which was very daring in those days, you know.
Mr. Hitchcock was so absolute and thorough, including wardrobe, as white to show before she stole the money, the black once she had become a thief.
The censorship at that time was quite stringent, and we were concerned about showing a, workable kind of bra. Usually in the 50s, you never showed the workings of engineering. You always had a lovely full slip over it, probably with lots of little lace and whatnot. So this was quite daring. And then, of course, when we saw her again, it was a black bra. So he got the best of both worlds.
I don't know how many people are aware of the fact that Psycho was actually the first time that a toilet was seen in a movie and actually flushed in a movie. Before that, bathrooms never showed a toilet. I guess nobody ever went to the bathroom in those movies, but it was just not allowed.
I said to Hitch that I would like to see the toilet in the bathroom. I said, every movie I've ever seen of a bathroom, there's no toilet in it. And I would like to see that toilet. I think the audience will be unsettled by the sight of it. An audience that had never seen a toilet on screen was going to have some kind of perhaps subconscious reaction to it. And Hitch laughed because he thought I was into my Freudian kick and talking about what toilets mean and potties and stuff like that. And we talked about it, and he said, well, put it in the script. Say that we see the toilet. And instead of saying just in the body of the directions, we see the toilet, I thought, that'll be struck down so fast we won't know what's happening. I had her make up the little note of the money that she had spent, then tear it up and throw it in the toilet and flush it. And I said to Hitch, do you think they'll let us do that? And he said, well, it's your script, you talk to them. There wasn't too much comment about the toilet. I expected more objections on that. And otherwise, we didn't really have any trouble with them. But I thought it was great of Hitchcock to let me go and fight the battle, because after all, he hadn't told me to put the toilet in it. So what he was teaching me as a new young writer was that you say it, you fight for it.
At that time, 1959, when we shot it, we weren't allowed to show nudity. I mean, he never asked me, and I never assumed or even thought that he would, because we couldn't show it anyway. The problem was what to wear so that it looked like I was nude. I mean, that was the biggest problem of all. Rita Riggs, the wardrobe girl, and I pored over these strip teaser magazines that showed all the different costumes, but none of them worked because they all had whirligigs on them or something. But we were just looking for something that was very simple.
That's when Miss Janet Leigh and I probably became very acquainted, because as a set girl at the time, it was my job to piece together and do a setup with the camera and see what would show.
And she came up with the idea of this plain moleskin, which is you use for blisters. Dancers use it to put over a sore spot because it's adhesive on one side and then it's a soft, almost flannel-like on the outside, and it's nude. The nude color.
And you cut and you glue, and suddenly, I was very adept with scissors and paste.
You put that over parts of your body, then, everything's copacetic.
The shower scene, as I wrote it, was not broken down into the shots that we would ultimately use. There was no storyboard on it when I wrote it. I just described the fact that she gets into the shower and then someone comes in with a knife and kills her. In the book, it says that her head was cut off.